What's poppin' with the squad? How y'all doing? How y'all living? It's your boy Amauri. We back with another one, and today we jumping right back into it. We got an album review, something you ain't seen on this channel in a long time. There's been a whole lot of shifting and adjusting, trying to figure out where it goes, how I want to roll those out, and just an overall sense of confusion as to how I'm gonna work this into my everyday content. But we gonna figure it out, and it's gonna happen. And it starts right now. We got a review of That Mexican OT, Texas Technician. We ain't gonna waste no time. Let's get into it right now. What I really like about this album is how much of That Mexican OT's personality really showed through it. I appreciate all the artistry about it, and I really like how there are certain parts where you can clearly tell where his influences lie and how his upbringing and where he lived, how that influenced his music. I really like the show of that real Texas sound, that down south hip hop sound. It really showed through on certain tracks like Cowboy in an Escalade or Function or Muchos Gracias. Man, like those tracks, I really like those because you get that true down south rap feel. And I don't really think there's a whole lot of that in the mainstream at the moment. So shout out to That Mexican OT for bringing back a sound that hasn't really been popular since the early 2010s, even before that, probably since the early 2000s. Twisting Fingers makes it feels like he has that West Coast influence in his music, which I can really dig a lot. I like that. I like that he makes it known that not only is he a Texas rapper, but he's a Texas rapper with California, West Coast influences. That little bit of G-Funk shows through on those tracks. So shout out to That Mexican OT when it comes to the artistry of the album, when it comes to what he was showing to be himself as an artist, as a rapper through this album. I think he did a phenomenal job. And even just to add on to the West Coast influences, there are just certain flow choices, certain rhyme scheme choices that make it very, very easy to see that he was influenced by somebody like a E40, somebody like that, because there's just so many offbeat rhymes, there's so many flow switches, and there's so many different cadences that don't necessarily run straight through the beat. They're really working their way all around the beat, which is something that I've known a lot of West Coast artists to do. And that's not to say that there aren't artists all across the world, all across the country that can do that, but that has been a defining feature of West Coast rap, is the ability to hit the beat where you didn't think the beat would land. So instead of the beat landing, you got a rhyme, you have a line, you have a bar that just hits that much harder because it wasn't interrupted by a bass drum or a hi-hat or something like that. Some of my favorite tracks include Birthday. I think that might be my favorite track on the album, which was the date 02/22/99 or whatever it was. I just call that Birthday because I'm pretty sure that's when his birthday is. It's just one of those grimy, dirty, make you feel some type of way beats, and then paired with his delivery, paired with his flow choices, and then paired with his just natural rapping tone, his rapping voice, his ability to, as the meme says, rapping cursive. It just fits so well together. All of it comes together just to create something so distinctive sounding that you can't help but nod your head and be like, oh yeah, that's OT. That's OT right there. And that's what I like about an artist's music. If they can make me nod and say, yes, that's that artist, then they've done a good job. Like I mentioned before, Cowboy in an Escalade, I really enjoyed that track. Function with Paul Wall, that was a fantastic track in my opinion. Muchas Gracias. I think one track that I think is going to be slept on until it comes back up later is Hola. That really got my attention, and I think it was a mixture of the hook as well as the beat and production itself. It just seemed so catchy that it's one of those songs that you can't help but feel is gonna pop back up and really be sung by everybody. So those are my favorite tracks off the album. Production wise, I think this album did a really good job. Like, I really like the samples that were used. I mean, very typical of that southern rap is the chopped and screwed samples that they use throughout their music, and I think he used those well. I think he did that well. But what I also really like is, like I said earlier, is that incorporation of that West Coast G-Funk sound in some of his music. What I also like on top of that, inclusion of the Latin sounds in some of these tracks. Some of these tracks sound like there's like he straight up recorded a mariachi band. Some of these tracks sounded like those guitars were played by a Latin artist. It's just the little different flavors that make up that Mexican OT really showing some of the production choices, and I am a big fan. One of the things that I really like about OT and his style is that it feels like flow switches, cadences, fitting in the pocket. It comes oh so easy to him. And I think that's just incredibly dope, because it's like the only way you really can describe him sometimes is that he is rapping in cursive. The way he rolls his words, the way that certain lines lead into others, the way, just the overall way that he is himself, but it translates into his artistry, if that makes sense. I think that's incredibly dope, and I think that him being able to add that on top of the production, being able to add that on top of just his overall personality, I think that it makes it so that even when it feels just a tad bit awkward, some of the pockets that he's getting into, it never really hits to the point that you feel like he is offbeat, that you feel like he just completely missed a measure or anything. It really truly feels like he is getting into the deepest pockets of a beat just to show you that he can do it. And honestly, that's another point for him, in my opinion. I think that's incredibly dope and shows his talent amazingly. Overall, I'd probably give this album a solid 6, just because other than Birthday, there were really no standout tracks to me. Point 'em Out with DaBaby, I was never really that big of a fan of. Just didn't hit as hard. The delivery didn't hit as hard. The production didn't hit as hard. And honestly, the DaBaby's feature didn't even hit that hard for me. So honestly, there's only one standout track above the rest of them. However, there's a lot of production that I like. There's a lot of stylistic choices that I like. So I don't think it would be fair to give him, a 4 or anything, because I do think it's a solid project. I do think it is a solid album for that Mexican OT, especially being his second sophomore album. So overall, 6 out of 10. That's what I'm giving it. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down to the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. It's just my opinion. Don't be mad. I'll see you on the next video. I'm gone.